What's up, Yans guys? Welcome back to Fishing PA with Ryan Reed. You know, many of you have reached out to me recently asking about the recent injury I had to my thumb when I was working on my pike and muskie baits. First off, I just want to thank all of you that have reached out to me, left me comments, dropped me messages on Facebook and Instagram. I really appreciate that. What I thought I would do is kind of give you guys a quick story, not for sympathy, but really to share my stupidity with you guys. You know, if I can share a stupid moment in my life with you guys and somebody can learn from it and not repeat a stupid mistake I made, I think it's worth doing a video on. Also, this story made me laugh, and it's made many people laugh in the last 10 days. So again, I thought I'd share it with you. Now, before I get into the gory details, here's a disclaimer. I'm going to show you pictures and I'm going to talk about blood. If you do not like that, please shut this video off right now because I do not want to short the story. I want to explain everything that happened. So, going back to this past winter, I decided to make my own crankbait. And as many of you know, the first run at it looks like this. So there's my Sir Galashad. Now, a couple of things to note here. You know, the bill right there is screwed on. It's an external bill. So as I was working through some changes a couple of Fridays ago, I realized I wanted to cut the bill in, I wanted to epoxy it, and then whenever I cast this guy, it hits the water and it lands flat. When I reel in, it immediately corrects and then it starts working. So after talking to many of you, I think the best course of action is to drill a hole in the bottom and add some weight. So going back to Friday, a couple Fridays ago, I made my blank. So I have a couple of blanks that I made that look like this. You guys can notice I cut the bill in, so a little different. I'm going to epoxy that. And then I also drilled a hole in the bottom, and I put some weight. So to my story, what happened? What happened to my thumb? Ryan, why are you so stupid? Well, as I was putting this weight in, I realized, crap, it's stuck. I wanted to pry it out so I could epoxy it in place. Well, if you guys can see that up close and personal, you can see the damage around the actual weight. And that's because instead of being smart, I was stupid, I was lazy, and I used the closest thing to me at that time on my coffee table. I had this beautiful 1-inch wood carving blade. I picked this up at Lowe's. Now it's 1 inch across. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take my blade here, and I'm just gonna pry this bad boy out. Okay, so I'm working around this, and eventually what happened is I slipped, it hit the wood, it made contact with my thumb here, and then ran down my hand. So into the thumb, down my hand. So, put this in perspective. Deanna was home right before that happened. She had left. This was about 30 minutes after she left the house. She went out to Latrobe for an appointment. So, I hit my hand. I'm in my living room, and I quickly realized, oh, that's not good. I could feel it. So, I didn't really know what was going on, so I kind of picked my hand up like this, and when I did that, I realized that there was blood actually squirting out of my hand, like, I'm talking like 1 to 1.5 feet of squirt, and it's like pulsating, squirting, and I'm like, oh, I must have hit an artery. That's not good. So my first reaction is, let's get up and run to the sink. Now, when I get up off the couch, I'm frantic, so I'm like moving like this, and I'm actually spraying blood all over my coffee table, all over the furniture, all over the carpet. It is a freaking disaster at this point. You know, so I get up, I run to the sink, and, you know, my first thought, cold water will stop the bleeding. Yeah, okay. So I get to the sink, and let me show you guys a picture real quick. This is what I was looking at. So as I'm pouring cold water on this, I'm realizing I can't get it to stop bleeding. So I pick up the phone, I call Deanna, I say, hey, I need you to come home. I think I need to go to the hospital. So she's like, all right, I'm going to leave. She gets in the car, heads home. On her way home, she calls Med Express and says, hey, do you guys do stitches? My husband cut himself. He's a little bit of an exaggerator. So she calls back and she tells me this, and I'm laughing, kind of laughing, and she's laughing, and, you know, we're trying to stay calm. At one point, I called my boss asking him, what do I do with this? I can't get it to stop bleeding. So I'm on the phone, you know, back and forth. So at some point in my mind, I decided I need to change my pants. I'm in my house, I'm in gym shorts. I really don't want to go to the hospital in gym shorts. Why? I have no idea. I'm an idiot. So I go upstairs, wrap my hand in paper towels, which, by the way, I went through an entire roll of paper towels. At one point, I dropped the paper towels, and as I went down, I squirted blood all over the front of my cabinets, which are white, Yay. That's another win for me. So I get upstairs, and then I realize, oh crap, I can't put my jeans on. So I'm like, trying to get my jeans on, and I can't get them up because I can't use my left hand. I'm squirting blood everywhere. And I finally am like, all right, whatever. I come down the steps, and my jeans are around my knees and my ankles, and I'm trying to pull them up. I'm running around the house. I look like an idiot. It's bad on many levels. So at some point, I came back upstairs. I grabbed a full body towel. So to make this part short, Deanna shows up. She meets me at the door. I got my hand wrapped in a towel. She looks at me and she says, oh, okay, well, it might not be that bad. You're not bleeding through the towel. So we get in the car. We make it about a mile down the road. And she's like, well, it hasn't bled through the towel yet. You're going to be okay. She's doing a great job coaching me because at this point I'm a little spastic. I'm frantic. I feel like I'm losing a lot more blood than anyone ever should. So we get a mile down the road, and she looks at me and she says, you're okay. It's going to be okay, which calmed me down. And then I decided to pick my arm up and flip the towel over. And immediately when I did that, I could see the blood shooting into the towel. And notice I had blood running down my entire arm. So at this point, she looks at it and she goes, we're going to go to the ER. So I'm like, okay, good idea. So we go to the ER. Get there. I can't even get out of the car. So we get out of the car, walk into the ER, holding this towel in my hand, bleeding all over the place. By the way, every single person in the waiting room, all 90 of them, decide to look at me and give me a dirty look because I'm holding a bloody towel as I walk into the ER. So I get up to the front desk, tell them, give them all my insurance information, tell them what's going on, brings me around. Guy sits me down. He says, look, if it's not that bad, you're going to be in the waiting room. I was like, okay. So he's like, we need to go to the sink and look at this. So go to the sink. He opens the towel like that much, and he sees it like squirting out into the towel, and he's like, oh boy, we need to get you back now. And I'm like, okay, all right, that sounds good. So he takes me back. They get me in this room. I got Deanna on this side. I got the nurse on this side. I'm holding my hand like this. Towel's here. He's like, now listen, I got to take this towel off. I got to see how bad it is. So she's holding it, trying not to look at it. He peels the towel over and realizes it had clotted slightly. Well, when he pulled the towel, it ripped the clot out. And as soon as he did that, it started shooting a steady stream of blood out of my hand, hitting my wife in the shoulder, which the immediate reaction is, oh, she turns and starts dry heaving. I'm standing there trying not to panic. I'm trying not to laugh, trying not to panic. This is a disaster. So the next step is, okay, get a nurse. Nurse wheels around the wheelchair. Okay, Ryan, get in the wheelchair. She's holding my hand. The nurse is holding my hand at this point. Now, put this into perspective. You have a nurse holding your hand here, and you're trying to sit down in a wheelchair. She wouldn't budge. I'm like trying to pull her and guide her around the front of the chair so I can sit down. So I got this handful of gauze on it. I finally get in a chair. She's wheeling me down the hallway. I'm bleeding all over the hallway, blood all over the hospital, the initial hospital room. They get me to the back, and this flood of like nurses and doctors comes in. So they're coming in. The nurse looks at me and she goes, the one nurse comes in and she goes, homicidal or suicidal? And I'm like, probably a little bit of both. Dead silence. Deanna's like, I think that was an actual question. And the nurse was like, yeah, that was an actual question. And I'm like, oh, can I have a redo? She's like, usually people say no to that, so I'll give you a redo. I'm like, all right, no, I'm not either of those. So that was kind of funny, set the mood a little bit. So they're still trying to get this bleeding stopped. The one nurse comes in, clenches my hand, puts it over on this table in this little bucket. And she looks at me and she says, I just want to make you aware you're probably going to pass out. My immediate reaction, I'm like, I'm not going to pass out. Like, why would I pass out? She's like, listen, you've been bleeding for an hour and a half. She's like, your adrenaline is pumping. She's like, you're all amped up. You're all worked up. You're apologizing to people for bleeding all over the ER. She's like, I'm telling you, you're going to pass out. I'm like, I'm not going to pass out. About a minute goes by, and I'm like, man, it's hot in here. I'm like, you guys hot? It's hot in here. She's like, no, you're feeling like that because you're going to pass out. And I'm like, I'm not going to pass out. I'm telling you, I'm not going to pass out. Another minute goes by. I'm like, oh, man, my stomach feels upset. I'm starting to feel. She's like, that's because you're going to pass out. I'm like, can I get a glass of water? She's like, no, because you're going to pass out and spill it. Now, at this point, she's giving me crap, which I kind of liked a little because I'm a little cynical, but at the same time, I was starting to feel like crap. So at this point, another minute goes by, and I'm kind of starting to feel a little woozy. She's yelling at me to lay down, and I'm not doing it. I'm like, I'm not laying down. I'm fine. Well, everything spun, went black, and apparently I passed out. Call me a wuss. I agree with you. I passed out in the ER. However, apparently this happens more often than not. All I can remember is things going black and me hitting the bed. Well, at this point, I'm convulsing because apparently when you pass out, you convulse. So it looks like you're having a seizure. So the nurse turns, looks at Deanna and says, this is what it looks like when somebody passes out, with a big smile. She's like, it's completely normal. Don't worry. So Deanna gets up. She helps the nurses move my feet. I was pinned up against the wall, so they had to lay me flat. At some point, a nurse came in and checked my sugar, because those of you that know me know that I'm a diabetic. Thankfully, I drank some orange juice before I left the house. So this whole thing transpires. I'm out. I don't know how long I was out. It felt like minutes. It probably wasn't. It's probably an exaggeration. But when I come to, I realize I am soaking wet. I am just soaked. And at this point, the nurse almost has the bleeding stopped. You know, my hand just kind of laying there. And I'm just like, oh, man, I feel like garbage. I'm like, can I get some water? She's like, no, a little bit. So I'm trying to recover. I'm trying to come up. And then my first reaction is, I look at the nurse and I'm like, I'm like, did I pass gas? Did I fart? And she starts laughing. She's like, no. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. At least I didn't make any funny noises or anything major. Honestly, I thought I peed my pants because I was soaking wet. And I even asked her, I'm like, I didn't pee my pants. She said, no, you're normal. Your body sweats a lot when you pass out. So that's, for those of you that didn't know that, I didn't know that until I experienced it. Thought it was kind of funny. So, after this, the doctor comes in, the nurse comes in, she stitches me up. I'm asking her all kinds of questions. We're joking about putting this on YouTube, all this stuff. I'm starting to feel a little better. She asked me if I want some crackers, some apple juice. Now, meanwhile, the other nurse that was giving me crap for passing out, she comes back in and she goes, so, you passed out. Like, I told you so. And I'm laying there like, yeah, I did. She's like, what, you a little afraid of blood? And I'm like, yeah, maybe I am. So the other nurse looks there and says, hey, can you go get him some apple juice, some crackers? Now, put this into perspective. This one nurse that has been giving me crap, she's on like a 48-hour bender. She's like on hour 47 ready to go home. So she's just irritated about everything. Now, there's a lady in the opposite room yelling at the nurses like, hey, I've been here for 2 hours. Why is this guy getting all the attention? What's going on with him? And she starts going off about all kinds of stuff I don't even want to get into. She made threats about hurting herself, and they're saying, well, she's going somewhere else, and it was a whole thing. And this other nurse was there yelling at her, and it was craziness. So I'm in the hospital. I'm sitting there. I'm starting to come to. After they patch me up, they clean me up, the original nurse that stitched me comes back in, and she says, hey, did you eat your crackers? You're not allowed to leave. And I'm like, no, she didn't bring it. I'm like, it's fine. I'm okay. I'm going to grab something to eat on the way home. She's like, she says, you didn't get him his orange juice or his apple juice and his crackers. She goes, yeah, I forgot. So anyway, she gets that, gets the crackers. I end up eating the crackers. We talk, we fill out all the paperwork, we get out of there. And as I walk out into the waiting room, all 90 people that were there originally are still sitting there, and they all look completely miffed that I got in and left the ER. I'm just getting all of these irritated looks from people that are sick and sitting in the waiting room waiting. So that was the first time in my life I ever got straight in and straight out. So as I go to check out, the same nurse that was giving me crap was at the front, and she looked at me and she goes, did you enjoy your crackers? And I'm like, why, yes, I did. Thank you. So that capped it all off. So eventually we ended up leaving. We grabbed dinner. We came home, walked in the door, and it looked like a crime scene out of CSI Pittsburgh, Donnie Irish style. And I'm like, oh, man, we got to clean all this up. I got blood all over the cabinets. I just found blood up in the second floor along the steps. So we scrubbed everything down, cleaned it all up. Immediately, first thing I do after that is I walk into the living room with my C4 and my Cabela's rod with the jig ripper on it. And I'm sitting there in a brace trying to figure out how I'm going to cast with my thumb. Now, the immediate reaction from my wife was like, what are you doing? With probably a few more choice words in there. And she's like, you need to stop. So that's letting you guys know where I'm at. The first thing I'm thinking about after this, I walk in the door and clean up, is, am I going to be able to fish? So that was kind of funny. Everybody seemed to enjoy that. So this is a whole long story and everything, but really, what this boils down to is I've had a sore thumb. I wasn't able to use it for about 8 days. Now, I type for a living. I am on the computer. You know, you have no idea until you experience this. You know, I'm right-handed, but it doesn't matter. I use my left for pretty much everything. So those of you that have experienced something like this where you can't use your thumb or your hand, it is crazy, you know, how much you can't do. So I actually took off work today, and the reason I took off work is I went to get the stitches out. So I thought I'd show you guys. This is what my thumb currently looks like. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know that I can ever get this in frame. That's what my thumb looks like without the stitches. Point being, we are healing. And I did go out fishing last Saturday. I threw around the Mark King glider a little bit. It definitely was sore after I was done, so hopefully this thing will heal up soon so I can get back out on the water. Now, again, I'm not telling you guys this for sympathy. Really for 3 reasons. Number 1, don't make the same mistakes I made. Don't be stupid. Don't be lazy. Do things the right way. Remember, sharp objects and power tools can hurt you. Number 2, this has to be one of the funniest things that's happened to me recently. You know, everybody's getting a kick out of this story, which it's all true. There's no exaggerations. You know, I did bleed all over my house. You know, it's just one of those things. And really, you know, the third point is, you know, I've talked to some of the most talented individuals when it's come to bait making. And Andrew, I just want to mention this really quick. So Andrew from Andrew's Musky Baits, you guys need to go out and check his Facebook page out. Do a search for Andrew's Musky Baits or Andrew's Musky Lures, and you guys will see his page. Now, Andrew reached out to me recently. And Andrew, if you're watching, I just want to thank you so much for all of your tips, your tricks, the information, everything you're sharing with me. It's so cool to meet individuals like you through social media that really just legitimately care about people. They're genuine, and they want to share, and they want to help guys like me get better. You know, I try to be passionate. I am super passionate about fishing. I'm super passionate about lure making. I'm just getting into it, but it's something that I love. It's fun, and I can see this being a hobby for me. Andrew makes great baits, but more importantly, you know, he's reached out to me and shared some really awesome information. Super helpful, just genuine guy, and I really just am super appreciative for all the people that have reached out, you know, like Andrew did, and asked me about my thumb, and, you know, gave me some good tips and tricks. So it's all good in the world of Ryan Reed Fishing PA. So where do we go from here? You know, I'm going to heal up, I'm going to get back on the water, and I'm going to get back to making these baits. I got a bunch of these to finish. This is the actual lure that I was working on at the time. You can see the awesome, genuine blood perch stains. Adam left me a comment on Facebook and said that's going to be a lucky lure. I thought about just epoxying it and running it like that, but we will see what happens. It's a blood perch pattern. Call it whatever you want to call it. So I guess to wrap this thing up, guys, you know, just be safe, be smart, don't be careless, don't make the same mistakes that I made. You know, this is inexperience. This is just laziness that I would take this to try to pry a weight out of the bottom of a bait. You know, it's nonsense. It's stupid. It could have been completely avoided. And, you know, again, I'm not going to let this hold me back. Who knows? I'm going to try to get out the next video and show you guys what I actually have been working on relatively soon. But who knows? Maybe I'll lose another finger or something else will happen and it'll be just as hilarious as this was. So hopefully you guys found this funny. Now, if you like this video, hit that like button for me. If you guys like the content overall, please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. So, for those of you that are out there in the water catching fish, for those of you that are in the lab making baits, I just want to thank everybody for their time, for listening to my craziness and my stupidity and my story. I greatly appreciate it. Wish you guys all tight lines, and we will see you next time.